Yeah. Ayo, people on the grill. Welcome to the Mental Pit. Snap Podcast. Yeah. Snap Podcast. Yeah. Grover on the grid. Welcome to the Mental Pit Stop Podcast. Life's a track with corners that come fast. Some days we hit the apex clean, sharp and true. Other days we miss wide, but that's part of the view. See, racing in life, both demand we adapt. Yeah. Reset the line, find grip where it's cracked. We've all faced pressure, burnout, and doubt. Moments where the engine feels ready to give out. But this pit stop's a place to refuel and repair. To breathe in the moment and know you're still there. It's not about trophies, not glory or fame. It's running your laps and staying in the game. So when shadows draft close or the road feels long, remember in this paddock, you'll always belong. We'll talk true, share struggles and keep it real tight. Cause every lap matters, every voice has the right. So buckle up, settle in, find strength in each lap. On this track called life, we can do this together.
Welcome back to the Mental Pit Stop Podcast, a space to slow down, refuel, talk openly about life and mental health. Episode 2 is about building your pit crew. We all need a support system, help us refuel, change tires, fix damage. But before we roll into today's episode, just a quick reminder, I am not a licensed mental health professional. What I share here comes from my own journey, my wins, my mistakes, my setbacks, and my lessons I've picked up along the way. If you're struggling, please reach out to a professional or call your local crisis hotline. If you're in immediate danger, I encourage you, if you're in North America, to call 911. All right, let's get into today's lap. As I will do with every episode, I will start with today's affirmation. I always like to take a deep breath before I start and just be present where I'm at. And I was thinking about this today. I don't want people to think I sound like some type of yoga instructor or something like that. But yeah, I just want to be present and, just be aware. You can repeat this with me or you can write your own. I'll pause at the end so you can say it, or I'll pause after each line. I am not alone on this track. I deserve a pit crew that supports me. I can accept help without feeling weak. My boundaries are valid and I will honor them. I am strong enough to drive my own race and wise enough to know when to pull in for support from my pit crew. As always, make it your own. Add a line that fits for you. This is your race, your mental health. I'll say it one more time. You can say it with me, or you can just sit back and listen. I am not alone on this track. I deserve a pit crew that supports me. I can accept help without feeling weak. My boundaries are valid and I will honor them. I am strong enough to drive my own race and wise enough to know when to pull in for support from my pit crew. So I want to get into the main content of today and talk about, why does our pit crew matter? In racing, no driver can finish, let alone win, without a pit crew. They're the ones who refuel you, swap out your worn tires, spot problems you might not even notice while you're gripping the wheel, if you will. In life, our pit crew is the same. These are the people who remind us to slow down, tell us the truth when we're ignoring the yellow flag. They help us get back on track when we've run out of gas. But here's the truth, and it's probably the hardest thing for most people. And I know I've tried to help some friends with this. It's been a fact for me as well. Sometimes not everyone in your life is part of your pit crew. Some are just spectators. They've paid a ticket to watch or paid for a ticket to watch. Some are just passing cars. Some are pedestrians. Some are debris on the track. They cause more harm than help. Building your pit crew means choosing the people who really see you, people who support you, people who show up the most when you need them. I'll be real with you here. I've really learned this lesson the hard way. And there was a time when I thought being strong meant doing everything myself. I didn't want to bother anyone with my problems. So I carried it all in silence and let it all build up and fester inside me. I call this part running out of gas alone. I'll be real with you. I learned this lesson the hard way. There was a time I thought being strong meant doing everything by myself. I didn't want to bother anybody with my problems. I'd ashamed, guilt, whatever the situation was, I carried everything in silence. But here's what happened. I ran out of gas. I hit burnout hard. I crashed hard. I didn't brake early enough for the hairpin at Deep Forest. And it took me a lot longer after I crashed out to recover because I refused to pull into the pits. Part of that came early on in life, being adopted. I sometimes felt abandoned, like I couldn't really rely on anyone. I thought if I leaned on people too much, they might walk away. They might abandon me. Deep down, I figured it was better to cross my own boundaries, ignore those back markers, those yellow flags, the red flags, rather than risk being left alone. So instead of leaning on my pit crew, which I did not have at the time, I tried to drive every lap solo, and eventually I crashed. There's another piece to this as well. In racing, if you ignore the yellow flag, the caution warning, you get penalized. And in life, I ignored a lot of yellow flags and red flags. And I often made green flags into red flags. When people treated me in ways that went against my boundaries, I stayed quiet. When someone only called me when they wanted something, I let it slide because I may be lonely, and I pushed aside my boundaries to maybe spend some time with somebody when time together was limited, but they spent it glued to their phone. I ignored it. At the same time, I did speak up a few times and was like, hey, I've noticed when we're together, you're always on your phone, but then when I call you, you never pick up. When I text you, I have to wait hours. And it just, I knew it, but I ignored it. I was terrified of losing someone. For me, losing someone felt worse than losing myself. So I'm a giver. I'm very generous. And it took me a long time until I had some friends speak up and I started putting myself first, because I was always putting everybody else above what my needs and wants were. But the truth is, every time I ignored a yellow flag, I was the one paying the penalty. My energy drained, my self-worth slipped away. And I ended up running on empty. I ended up having less self-confidence. Eventually, a couple friends pointed this out to me, and I knew they were flags, but I choose to ignore them. And it wasn't until they spoke up and kind of said, hey, you're better than this. You deserve better than this. And finally, I was like, no more. And I still slip back once in a while, but for the most part, I've made my boundaries, and I just need to stick to them. With me choosing my pit crew early in my military career, I lost a close friend. And honestly, I didn't really know how to process it. I think I was 19, 20 at the time. And after that, I kept people at a distance. My friend Quinn, redheaded, silly, goofy, nerdy, he was killed in a car accident coming back from Christmas vacation after we had finished basic training, and I don't even know how, 10 weeks, I think, of battle school. We were given a few weeks off and told to come back in after Christmas for after New Year's. And he was nowhere to be found. We were told that he was killed in a car accident. It was at that point that I realized I just started really not allowing people to really get close to me. I didn't have that pit crew, and I just kept building things on. Now, my stress, my anxiety, my resilience of stress is pretty high, simply because I've done this my entire life, just dealt with things by myself. But here's the question. I still ask myself sometimes, was I protecting myself or was I sabotaging myself? Was it strength or fear of abandonment in disguise? It took me a long time and the right people to realize that protecting yourself doesn't mean isolating yourself, and avoiding connection doesn't actually protect you from the pain. It just guarantees loneliness. And now I'm at the stage where I'm alone, and it seems my self-worth. So let me share two quick examples again. I think highly of someone that really shared their thoughts on the first episode of the podcast I did yesterday. And Paul was introduced to me on Discord through Coach Luke, and he's just a genuine, trustworthy, honest, smart guy that I would consider to be on my pit crew. I think if I said, "Hey, I'm not doing well today," and we've had some great chats on Discord, and I've shared some personal things with him and Luke, and you know they've always been there to support me, and often it's people are shocked, I think, sometimes that I can speak so openly about stuff because I've kept it in for so long. And now I just want to show people that it's okay to say, I'm having a freaking shitty day. I need some help. And the other one was Sparkles. Sparkles sent me a message on Discord today and was like, her words were encouraging. She told me that she loved the fact that I always look at life through the lens that there's always someone on the track that's faster. There's always someone who seems to have more going on, and that's okay. I have friends who have lost both their legs, many situations, one leg, one arm, brain injuries, and many of them, not all of them, but many of them look at life as they're happy to be here. They're happy to be alive. Often people celebrate their alive day. And I think sometimes it's, for me, not having, other than my back and my neck injury, not having anything major, it's often reminds me like I need to look at things in a different light, because I've got a roof over my head. I get to race as much as I want outside of work when I have my free time. And I have a lot of time, but I also work hard. So these are just two examples of people I would consider to be in my pit crew. And I have a couple other local friends here that I can call up and say, hey, I'm running out of gas. I need some help. So wherever you're at today, I encourage you to grab a notebook or your phone and make a list. Step one, write down 3 people who lift you up, people who leave you feeling lighter, not heavier. Next to each of their names, write one small way that you can lean on them this week. It could be sending a message, say, hey, you want to grab a coffee? Or just simply opening up and saying, hey, I'm having a rough day. But also at that time, write down one boundary you want to honor this week, one yellow flag that you will not ignore. Remember, a pit crew works best when you actually pull in for the support. There's no sense in having a pit crew if you're just going to do your 200 laps and expect to make it the 200 laps, and you're not, because you're going to run out of fuel. So here's something else to think about this week. When you make that list, who's really in your pit crew, and also make a list of who's not in your pit crew. Who are you going to set tougher boundaries with? Who are you going to eliminate, fire? Say your contract is over, you're moving off to McLaren because their pit crew sucked last weekend. Only for one driver. That's a whole other story. But before we wrap up, I hope this has at least helped one person. I want to leave you with something to share, a little personal. I once had to look at my boss in the eye and say, I had a rough night. I had to call the suicide helpline last night. And that was something that was not easy for me to admit, my weakness. But it reminded me of something important, that it's okay to say you're not okay. I realized that suicide was not the answer. No matter what you're going through, with the way things are now, there's people homeless, everything. There's always a way out besides suicide. Your pit crew can support you, but they can't support you if you never pull into the pits. Sometimes support looks like a helpline, a counselor, or just a friend you can trust. Remember, asking for help isn't weakness. It's your race strategy. It's wisdom. It's survival. This podcast is about sharing experiences, not professional advice. Remember, if you do need support, please reach out to a licensed professional, mental health professional, or call your local crisis hotline if you need to. If you need to reach out to me on Discord, you can also do that as well. Remember, your pit crew is there for you. Don't run the race alone. I look forward to episode 3, where we will talk about the crash. What do we do when life spins you out? What do we do when we miss the hairpin at Deep Forest, or we get pushed off at turn 1 at Brands Hatch? How do we react? How do we get back on the track with our pit crew? Until next time, stay steady, stay grateful, and keep driving forward.